Hello, can you all hear me? Yes. Excellent. Welcome to the Candidate Forum for Fresno County Board of Supervisors, District 3. My name is Donnie Bergstrom. I am the Executive Director, Managing Editor of Fresnoland. We're a nonprofit news organization based here in Fresno. All four organizations here today are nonpartisan nonprofit organizations that will not be endorsing the candidates. This is a very nonpartisan forum. And with that, I will turn it over to Joe Moore.
Thank you very much, Donnie. I'm Joe Moore, President and General Manager of KVPR, Valley Public Radio. We're really pleased to be here tonight for this Candidates Forum and pleased to be partnering with Fresnoland, the League of Women Voters, and CMAC. CMAC is here taping and streaming this forum tonight, and you can find the video on CMAC's website, and you'll also, I'm sure, be able to find it at Fresnoland and at kvpr.org. This evening, we have two members of the League of Women Voters of Fresno to guide our forum. The League has been supporting democracy for over 80 years in Fresno and over 103 years nationally. Kathy Caples, our moderator, maintains control over the forum from start to finish. She has met with our candidates, who have all agreed to the rules. Neither of them have seen or reviewed tonight's questions. Robin Shero, our timekeeper, is seated in the front row. And Kathy, I'll hand it over to you now.
Thanks, Joe. And thank you all for joining us this evening. It's really kind of hard to figure out where to stand up here. So it's my role tonight to introduce the candidates and get us started. And so I'm going to have you kind of wave because you're not in a particular order up here. So Miguel Arias, current Fresno City Council member representing District 3 in his second term, former State Center Community College District Trustee. Sal Quintero, our current Fresno County Supervisor from District 3, seeking his third term and previously served on the Fresno City Council. Luis Chavez is a current City Council member representing District 5 in his second term. And E.J. Hinosa is a music teacher at Gaston Middle School in his first campaign. I'd also like to introduce Omar Rashad. I think you need to stand up and give a wave because they can't see you. He is representing, he's a journalist with Fresnoland, and also Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado, a journalist with KVPR. They are going to be asking our questions this evening, but before they get started, I'm going to go over a few rules. This is your opportunity to hear pivotal answers to issues facing Fresno County. And we have asked the candidates to stay focused on the future of our county and why they're seeking this responsibility. And so to keep us on schedule and achieve our goals, we've developed the following rules. Restrooms are on all 3 floors, so please, if you need them. Everyone, please check to make sure you have silenced your electronic devices. We ask audience that you respect each of the candidates in the same way that they're going to respect one another this evening. And you can hoot and holler at the end. We'll have time for applause at the end, but to keep us on schedule, we'd like to have you be quiet for the meantime. And if you're going to stand up, please try to do so in a way that's not blocking the view of anyone else on the to the stage. The candidates have agreed to no personal attacks. If they start to attack one another, we have brought in the cowbells. Okay, it's loud and it's obnoxious like we don't want them to be. And so they're going to each have a turn to answer a question that has been developed for them in a number of issue areas. This night, we're going to have other candidates have an opportunity to respond, and they're going to signal if they'd like to respond to that candidate's response by lifting their hands so that I can know who wants to do that. And then they will also have a time at the end to be able to do a closing remark. And we ask that you don't talk over one another. So now it's time to get started, and Danielle is going to ask our first question.
Wonderful, thank you. This first question is for Miguel. On the Fresno City Council, you have been a vocal critic of the city and county's tax sharing agreement, saying that the agreement does not give the city its fair share of property tax revenue as new development gets annexed into the city. If elected, what do you think a fair MOU looks like between the city and the county? And do you think the county should direct all new development into the city if elected?
Thank you for the question. For those of you who don't understand the current tax sharing agreement, essentially it's based on the simple premise that all new development and existing development should be directed to current cities and now in the county areas. As such, the cities are given, the county is given the greatest share of the tax sharing revenue that's generated in our cities. Specifically, Fresno County gets 68% of every tax dollar that's generated in the city of Fresno. Our whole regional plan for housing, our transportation plan, our hospital system plan for healthcare, our air district control plan for reducing pollution is all based on the simple premise that new development should go towards existing cities. Reduces pollution, reduces traffic, in whether it's public transportation. In my estimation, the County of Fresno's current plan is completely unfair. I think we at least need an additional 5% for current cities, and that would result in them having to renegotiate other parts of the city, other cities within the County of Fresno's tax sharing agreement as well.
Thank you. Luis, you have told Fresno Land that you think the county needs to pursue new development to alleviate the region's affordable housing crisis. But you've also said that the city's Southeast Development Area proposal should slow down while the city figures out a clear financing plan for the multi-billion infrastructure associated with it. If elected, how would you pay for new infrastructure associated with new developments like Bryant Ranch or Millerton Newtown or other new developments?
Well, you look at what the development community has already done in Madera, for example. That's not a subsidized project. They figured out formulas on how to pay for it. So my position has been that whatever development happens should be able to pay for themselves, whatever that looks like, whether it's a Melrose district, whether it's a community facilities district. The bottom line is we can't repeat the mistakes that we have in the past where essentially ratepayers were subsidizing all the infrastructure. And we just had a meeting this past week, I believe to the tune of $600 million is what SADA would include. The water's not the problem. The problem is the sewer. You can't piecemeal sewer out in those areas. You have to install it all at once. And that's really the challenge that we're going through. With regards to the affordable housing, I think affordable housing should be across the county, across the cities. Clovis included, by the way, which they're about to get sued by the state of California for not building enough affordable housing within their community. But that, to me, is going to be our biggest challenge with the housing crisis. And I've said this before, as a council member that has had all of the above housing products made in this district, I can tell you that's probably one of the biggest challenges we're going to solve. Single home residences, condominiums, tiny homes, prefab homes. I've done them all in my district, and that's what the county needs to do across the district.
Thank you, Luis. Sal, you have been historically supportive of the county's new development ambitions, but even in the nicest developments like Millerton Newtown, there are still water quality and supply issues. The county is seeking a federal grant to help widen Millerton Road. Do you think developers should pay more of the price tag for new developments?
Yes, I do. I can tell you that a lot of the reason that developers go outside of Fresno or other areas to build is simply because of the land and the costs. And if they're going to, I feel they need to pay their fair share as well. And I think that that should be done. But the other part that we need to look at is that we have to look at what we have that's existing within the city limits. Okay, if you're looking to build where there's already some infrastructure, why don't you look at the city of Fresno, for example, what resources they already have. I can tell you there's about 30 acres in the southeast part of the city that of land that the city owns, and nobody's approached them, I guess, to develop that land. But it already has some of the infrastructure that's needed. Why build outside? And in the 90s, the Building Industry Association teamed up to start buying infill lots within the city of Fresno, build housing in there, and then buy existing homes that were older, refurbish them, and sell them. And that would help create a healthier infrastructure within our older neighborhoods.
Thank you, Sal. EJ, as a newcomer to politics, some would say you don't have as much skin in the game as your more experienced to politics colleagues on the stage here tonight, especially when it comes to the city-county tax sharing agreement and who gets to compete for new development. If elected, what fresh approach would you bring to navigating the environmental impacts of new development versus the costs that they bring? And where do you think new development should be directed?
Well, I disagree with the idea that I don't have any skin in the game. I'm raising my children in the county of Fresno. I've taught over 1,000 students in this community, and their future matters to me. I consider that skin in the game. I agree that probably the city could have a larger cities could have a larger share of tax sharing agreement in the tax sharing agreement. But I also think that the county, with lots of money coming from the Biden administration and ambitions to build lots of affordable housing, hopefully we'll get a good transportation measure passed. We can start repairing roads and repairing, not expanding our freeways. All these construction projects, they're going to need coordination at the county level across municipalities. And so I think the county should have the lion's share of the tax sharing agreement. And I don't know about specific sites where the development can be made, but I would oppose further industrial development in Southwest Fresno, where I teach near Edison High School. People who live there have had enough, and they are seeing their health outcomes. They're measurably worse in that part of town relative to other parts of the county for that development. So I would suggest looking out to other parts of the county where these places can be developed, and let's intentionally cultivate sites where we can welcome new and exciting industries that are going to bring good, well-paying jobs with plenty of mobility and lots of upward movement potential for the workers of Fresno County.
Miguel?
If I may, just to add to that, I represent one of the most dirtiest air basins in the country, where the life expectancy, as EJ indicated, is 20 years less than up north zip codes in the same city of Fresno. And as we started to hold industrial developers accountable for mitigating their traffic and pollution impact, they ran to the county seeking relief. And the county has responded by proposing 3,000-acre industrial park in the southern part of the city, which again is the most polluted in the state and in the country, as a way to avoid them paying for their development and environmental impact, and I think that's wrong.
All right, moving on to affordable housing. Fresno County has become less affordable since the beginning of the pandemic. Rent and home prices have consistently gone up, and research shows that the county is about 38,000 affordable units short of meeting demand. Sal, you've said that affordable housing will occur on its own without the county getting involved. Can you explain that position to people in the room who may be hearing that for the first time? And can you also explain whether county revenue should be used to directly fund affordable housing projects?
Yes, and I'll ask you to repeat the second part of that question. But I can tell you that with the land that's available out there, I believe it's important that we turn to private developers, and there are developers out there that do build. They don't need the large amount of acreage to make a profit. What they can do, these builders consistently, year in and year out, will buy small acreage, and build their housing on it and still make money on it. And I believe that we have land throughout Fresno County that we can do that type of thing. The other thing that we can deal with on affordable housing is, as I did when I first joined the Fresno City Council, we had a piece of acreage in southeast Fresno, close to Calwa, there was just an empty lot. We were able to work with self-help enterprises and build 13 new homes on that property, and we can still do that today. And it's more important that we do that today now by working with the Habitat for Humanity organization, the nonprofit, self-help enterprises, and these types of organizations. And as well as the county has worked with RH Community Builders.
That's the end for that question. We do have opportunity to ask about how much of the county's money, how much of revenue should go towards funding affordable housing projects in the county.
We're doing that already. I don't have an exact number for you, but we're doing that through the organizations of RH Community Builders, the Housing Authority. That's just to name a few. But along with providing some monies to build that type of housing, we're also providing in-home supportive services through our public health department, through our social services, through behavioral health. Recently, we had the grand opening, ribbon cutting of the Arthur, 41 units at Blackstone and Shields. 19 of those are for behavioral health clients.
I appreciate that, Sal. Miguel, as a city council member, you've pushed city leaders to increase affordable housing units, affordable housing using resources on the city, state, and federal levels. Could you explain whether a similar approach would work on the county level, or explain what the most effective strategy would be?
Absolutely. I would respectfully disagree with my colleague Quintero. I think the city and the county both have a fiduciary responsibility to invest city and county money towards affordable housing solutions. In my district alone, in 4 years, I've initiated 27 affordable housing projects, from Hotel Fresno at 40 million to smaller projects to much larger projects. And what we've seen is, unless the city is willing to put their money where their mouth is and invest real money into these projects, they won't come to fruition. What will happen is the private sector will come in, keep those properties, and then turn them into market rate a few years downstream. So from my perspective, as a city, we have spent more than $400 million of city, state, and federal money to build affordable housing just in my district alone in 4 years. I think that same level of investment is needed from the County of Fresno. It is a $4 billion organization. You cannot treat folks with drug addiction, mental health addiction, or take them off the streets without providing them housing. And simply doing one project at a time or 10 houses every 10 years isn't sufficient to get us out of this housing crisis. And lastly, the county needs to do its job and hold other states accountable for producing affordable housing projects, which it hasn't. It requires the state of California to come in and hold Clovis accountable because the county hasn't.
Got it.
Good job, Miguel. The second half of this question is going to be a 15-second answer.
Yeah. Thank you. And so in 15 seconds, how much of the county's money should be spent funding affordable housing in the county?
In my estimation, at least $200 million of their general operating budget should be invested in affordable housing projects on an annual basis out of their $4 billion.
Got it. Luis, should the county, same question, should the county be funding affordable housing projects? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They should. The residents that we're serving, Fresno County, City of Fresno, they're all the same residents. What I think for me has been really frustrating is, the conversation we're having right now about affordable housing, as my colleague mentioned, has been overly concentrated in the southern part of the city. There's no reason why we need to have all of these projects south of Olive or south of McKinley. Those projects should be in North Fresno. They should be in Northeast, Northwest. They should be in Clovis. They should be in Reedley and Parlier and all these communities, because guess what happens when those folks can't find affordable housing there? They come to Fresno. So we end up getting a lot of the population, which, based on what the census data tells us, 48,000 people were added in the last 10 years here in the city of Fresno alone. 41% of that growth is in my district. So Southeast Fresno has seen a lot of the increased population, which then leads to less inventory. It used to be back in the day where we had anywhere from 8 to 10% vacancy rates. We're down to like 2%. So that pushes prices up even more. So that's why I keep saying that this is a problem we can literally build our way out of. That's what I mean when I say that.
Got it. And in 15 seconds, how much should the county be devoting to funding affordable housing projects?
I think at least 15% of their budget should be allowed to be allotted to affordable housing. We did our own numbers. When you look at projects that we built where there were for senior citizens, which, by the way, senior citizens on fixed incomes are the highest risk population for being homeless. We're working on a big project right now in Southeast. That's going to be a big challenge for us, and it needs to reflect it in the budget.
Appreciate that. EJ, you've heard Sal, Miguel, and Luis talk about whether the county should be funding affordable housing. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Well, I fully agree with each of them that the county should be, and I would say that I completely agree also with the idea that Kingsburg and Reedley and Fowler and Clovis and all these other parts of Fresno County, all of these other municipalities and cities, I don't think that it's a matter of them needing to also have some development of affordable housing, but I'm sure that those communities need them too, need those affordable units. And so let's build affordable housing all across the county. Let's fund it through the county in partnership with the city and whatever other stakeholders that are able to collaborate on that. And while we're doing that, let's also build public transportation, so that all those new neighbors in Kingsburg and Reedley, et cetera, can get to the urban core here in Fresno County efficiently.
Got it. And in 15 seconds, how much would you use out of the county's budget to fund affordable housing projects?
I'd say 10 to 15%.
Got it. Yeah. Mr. Quintero? Yeah.
Just as an example, in terms of providing affordable housing, I can tell you that last year the County of Fresno provided $540,000 to build 8 homes in Riverdale, and then they built another 7 at $1.3 million in Fireball. So there's homes that are being built to provide affordable housing by the county.
Earlier, you did mention a specific amount out of the county's budget.
Well, that's just 2 projects.
Okay, yeah. But do you have an idea for how much out of the county budget should be allotted for?
No.
Okay.
Well, the budget changes each year, and the money that you have to work with is what's provided.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thank you, Mr. Quintero. Moving on to homelessness. Homelessness has increased in Fresno County over the past decade despite record amounts of funding. City leaders have accused the county of abdicating its responsibility to address homelessness, one example being how the county does not provide warming or cooling centers. EJ, would you support where would you support placing county-run warming centers?
Well, I would support placing them in any community in Fresno County that would like to see them. I'm living in the Tower District and running to represent County District 3. It's the urban core of Fresno County. We certainly have a painful need for that here. There are city facilities, but currently the county operates 0 such shelters, as you mentioned. I think that's a policy failure. I think the county should step up. A budget of billions of dollars, I think, can find some funding for a homeless warming, cooling center. And so I would absolutely support building such a shelter in any community where we could find land and willing neighbors.
Got it. Luis, same question. Where would you support putting county-run warming centers?
Well, I can tell you that the frustrating part for me was when I visited the Mosqueda Community Center, which was one of our official warming centers and cooling centers. We had people there from Sanger. We had people there from Prather, from Auberry, that actually came down to the city of Fresno because we provide that service. The county does not. So I think that approach is what differentiates us at times from the city and the county, where we actually make a concerted effort to address the needs of the vulnerable populations. And sometimes we don't see that from the county. And I think that needs to change. So to answer your question, I think they should be where the populations are and where the need is.
Got it. And Miguel, same question. Where would you place county-run warming centers?
The county-run warming centers and cooling centers, if they open any, should be in county islands and in county jurisdictions, just the way the city opens theirs in the city jurisdictions. I have a warming center a block away from my house, and yes, it is tough. You got to sit there in neighborhood meetings with your neighbors, explain to them the importance of sheltering the population in the need of emergency and crisis, and you have to mitigate the impact. And sometimes they're difficult conversations. Just last year, I had to do door-to-door visits with my neighbors in Tower with Analisa Preya to hear directly with residents on changes they wanted. But the county should be responsible for doing that, and they have been. When there were wildfires in the mountains, when there were rains, they opened emergency shelters for those residents. But when people are freezing to death or in the heat of the summer, for urban residents, they refuse to do the same thing in emergency method.
Got it. Thank you. And Sal, you've historically taken the position that cities and towns should be in charge of opening up warming or cooling centers. It's essentially not a county matter that it gets involved in. All three of your challengers have stated how they'd like the county to run warming centers. Can you explain your position and why?
Sure. There's no question about the importance of having the centers in strategic areas throughout our county. One of the things that we've done the last couple of years when we've gotten calls like that is we've asked our residents that have called us or have individuals that need assistance like that is to utilize our county libraries. because those county libraries are throughout Fresno County in different communities. So that's what we do. We say, well, as far as the county being able to provide something, we would refer you to the library.
Got it. But those libraries don't have overnight hours like warming centers.
No, what we do then is we try to provide the assistance through our public health and social service programs to see what we can do and where we can house them in places that are close by. But the biggest need is, of course, here in the city of Fresno.
Got it. Thank you. EJ, there's been a record amount of funding to address homelessness on the state and federal levels. The county grand jury authored a well-publicized report criticizing the lack of oversight, transparency, and coordination over the myriad of funding resources and agencies that work to eliminate homelessness in the county. What would you change in the county's approach to homelessness?
Well, first, I would say that as an elected official, and even just as a citizen myself, I view homelessness largely in California as it's happening right now as a consequence of mental health and addiction. So on the county level, I would advocate for mandatory rehabilitation in lieu of incarceration as the lawful consequence for repeat drug possession. I think that without that, we're really not going to see the number of homeless folks decrease. So I don't know if the county could pass, a county law along those lines. Maybe so, but I would certainly advocate for that.
Got it. Luis, same question. What would you change about the county's approach to homelessness?
I think what's missing from the county it's that they have their own plan, and then the city has their own plan. And I think the connection and the collaboration between the city and the county oftentimes does not happen. And when that doesn't happen, we end up with situations where we don't have warming centers for county folks, and we have them for city. We have affordable housing for city folks, but not for county as much as we should, and the population reflects that. But I think the overall plan that we have as a region is not working really well, because oftentimes we see folks on the street, and the city of Fresno deals with this just because of our population. We are the big metropolis here in the Central Valley, and so we see that quite often. But the fact that the county does not address the mental health piece of this conversation is really what's more challenging, because we know that out of the homeless numbers that we have, thousands of folks that are living in the streets, about 800 of those are what we call the chronic homeless folks, the folks that have mental health, substance abuse. They have a lot of medical conditions that oftentimes they don't have access to medicine and on an ongoing basis. And so that really, to me, is the biggest challenge, and that's what I would like to change, a better collaborative approach between the city and the county. And oftentimes, you don't have to like somebody to be able to work with them. And I think that's what we need at the county and at the city level, to work together. The county's not done that.
Got it.
EJ's up next.
I would just like to add one more thing. I think overall in our region, there's a great need and a great desire for a more compassionate approach, to use a very general term, towards homelessness. We want to see folks who are unhoused, when their encampments are cleared, we need that to be well documented and very transparent. We need to have better protections for people's personal property when those encampments are being cleared. And also, compassionate response to homelessness locally, again, goes back to including county programming for shelters. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Sal?
Well, I can tell you that there is ongoing meetings between a lot of the providers that provide the services for the homeless and those with mental or behavioral health issues through the Fresno Madera Continuum of Care. And they have ongoing meetings. Each of these organizations, they get together, have their meetings, and see how they can better provide services to the folks that are facing these issues. The other thing is, when there's an encampment and the county arrives and tells them that they have, and it's both the city of Fresno and the county that show up to these encampments and telling these folks they need to move along, they're not in an area they're supposed to be. A lot of them, and we do have to ask them, would you might we be able to provide you housing or rehabilitation services or any type of help? A lot of them will say no, and they'll just move on.
Got it. Miguel, same question for you. What would you change about the county's approach to homelessness?
I'm going to try not to be as angry as I feel right now over the homeless question, because I'm in that space every single day. The city has 12 shelters for the homeless population. There's only 12 in the whole county, all operated by the city, 700 beds. We have 4 warming centers in the whole county, all operated by the city. The county is a $4 billion organization in charge of social services and the safety net programming of this community. They have 0 shelter beds, 0 warming centers. They've never been to one of the shelter beds or one of the shelters that we operate. If they were, they would see that there are no county social workers there. There are no county mental health or drug treatment providers there. They have to figure out public transit to go to Clovis to get any help. That's not the kind of support that they need. And this notion that a series of bureaucratic meetings just reinforces that they're completely disconnected from the reality of today. The fastest growing population of homeless are elderly on fixed incomes. There is no place outside of the county that you can take drug treatment, and the current line right now for those kind of services in Fresno County is like 2 years. So yes, when you're offering somebody one night stay at a shelter at Rescue Mission after they moved all their stuff and drug treatment after 2 years of waiting in line, sure, they're gonna say no. But the way the city has done it, 70% have transitioned to permanent housing because they get the actual support in the shelter.
And we're going to move over now to Sal. While you've been on the Board of Supervisors, you voted to consolidate a significant amount of the Department of Social Services functions into a new leased facility in Clovis, as was just mentioned. We've reported on how that consolidation has impacted some people's access to critical services, especially people without a car. Could you explain that decision and how do you believe DSS can do a better job of helping people in Fresno County access the safety net?
I can tell you that since those buildings have been opened and the services that are being provided there, my office has not had one call regarding any problems of getting to the services. There's public transportation that's available, but I can tell you that I have not. And in checking with our folks in those departments, social services, and some of the behavioral health and foster children programs out there, they do get some calls, but they're able to take care of that.
And I want to move over to Luis. Fresno County employs at least 24,000 in-home supportive service workers who provide care to over 25,000 patients, according to union leaders. They're hoping to increase their wages from $16.60 an hour to $20 an hour in order to combat turnover, claiming that IHSS workers save the county money by providing care to the elderly and disabled in the comfort of their own homes. If elected, would you support a raise to $20 an hour for IHSS workers? If you disagree with the union's proposed $20 an hour, what number would you support?
I would support that, but to me, it's too low. The fact that we're paying these folks that take care of our most vulnerable populations, that type of wages is just ridiculous. And I say that as the son of a home care worker retiree. My mom was a SEIU home care worker, so I know what that's like. I've had conversations with her about the level of service that they provide and what they do to make sure that these folks, by the way, can stay in their home and not have to be out in the street or in another facility that they don't want to. So I think we got to come to a point where we're paying people that take care of the most vulnerable what they deserve, that we treat them with the respect and the dignity of the job that they have to do. It's not easy to clean up after somebody that soiled themselves. It's not easy to administer somebody medicine. It's not easy to see people pass away, sadly. So when the county takes that position, to me, that's completely unacceptable. If I was a supervisor there, I would bump up that pay. And you make priorities, right? It's like that old saying, don't tell me what you value, show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value. We haven't seen that from the county. So I think I would be supportive of the 20, but to me that's still too low, because guess what? Somebody that can now go and flip burgers can probably get paid more than that now. So compare those two skill trades and then let me know what type of compensation they deserve.
EJ, would you support IHSS workers earning $20 an hour, or what would your preferred pay for them be?
Yeah, I would support that. To Luis's point, would support an increase of more than that too. I think that we all have the feeling that government can often be inefficient, and I think that when you are paying the county employees and these in-home services workers wages that are below what they're worth, that inefficiency only gets worse. Not only that, you see higher turnover rates, people who are dissatisfied with the quality of their work, I should say the quality of their employment, will perform at lower standards than people who are satisfied with their employment. People come to these workers, these county workers, in some of the most dire moments of need in their life, and they need people who are ready to really engage with them, people who have energy and enthusiasm for their work, and that's not going to happen until the County Board of Supervisors invests in its labor force. So I would absolutely support that. Thank you.
Sal, I was going to go to you. Do you support $20 an hour, or what would you support?
Yes, and I've met quite a few times with the in-home care supportive service folks, and my response has always been, yes, I'm on board. Find me 2 more votes. That's what I've always told them. I'm on board. I'll support you. I was my father was in a union, and I know what the benefit and help was to our family. So that's what I always tell them. Find me 2 more votes. I'm on board.
And I want to ask Miguel the same question. Would you support $20 an hour?
Absolutely. But let me also just tell the public, this county has historically only valued correction officers, sheriff officers, and district attorneys. They're the highest paid in the region in their positions. But when it comes to social workers who are taking care of abused kids, when it comes to healthcare workers taking care of the elderly, they somehow expect someone else to find 2 votes. It shouldn't have to work that way. In our city, we have paid all groups what they deserve, what they earn, and we found the money. And every other county in the state of California has found money for social workers and for healthcare workers. But this county continues to only value the folks that are in charge of putting people away and keep them away instead of preventing and providing them support that they're by statute required to do. And I think that's the distinct difference for us as a city and our county partners.
And I want to stay with you, Miguel. It's been documented in the news and elsewhere that Fresno County's Department of Social Services has reached crisis levels, as you alluded, both with the foster care system, but also with high turnover rates and low morale among DSS workers themselves. If elected, how would you reduce turnover and improve the quality of Fresno County's foster care system?
I would just add this, that the county has a history of only responding during a crisis. The only reason it fixed the juvenile hall system was because the Fresno B outed them for the Hall of Shame. The only reason it's responding to the kids under the child support, the child care services of CPS is because the B and the union outed them. And it's very simple. Prioritize your budget to serve the most vulnerable population in the county. Our kids and our elderly and those that need the safety net programs should be very simple. As a city, we've done that. We prioritize the youth. We prioritize neighborhoods. We prioritize, community centers. We prioritize everyone, and we still manage to pay the police officers and make them the top paid in the valley because they do have the hardest job compared to small cities. So it can be done. And I would just end with this. If a supervisor can find the money to accept a raise year over year, they can surely find the money to pay the social workers that are taking care of the most vulnerable in the county.
Luis, how would you reduce turnover and improve the quality of the foster care system?
Well, and it's no secret. My family and I have been foster parents for the last 6 years, so I'm very familiar with the broken system over at the county. I've had to make numerous trips over to the new offices, building 3 and 5 over there, and I can tell you that that's been, one of the most depressing places that you can go to because of the lack of investment that's happened. What good is a brand new shiny building when you're not investing in the people that are actually making the work there? They're actually taking care of abused and neglected children in our community. And so when we get to that point where, we value investing more in funding a garlic festival rather than children that have been sleeping on the floor, that's a pretty sad situation. And I'll share this. one of the childs that was photographed in the Fresno Bee, we actually took in one of those children in our home, and the stories that came out of that child was just abhorrent. We should not have that happen in our county, and the way that we treat the most vulnerable people says a lot about ourselves. And then the fact that supervisors claim that they didn't know when there were meetings that were held over the Foster Youth Oversight Committee, to me, I think is just a total neglect and just a failure on their part.
EJ, how would you reduce turnover and improve the foster care system?
I would affirm everything that the councilmen have mentioned. I think that the County Board of Supervisors has generally been a bit of an austere agency that has been very withholding. I think it's time to let the rivers flow from the county budget into these social services and the workers who make them work. And hopefully we can see turnover decrease and see people more satisfied with that work. But I also want to say that it would be a great help to those workers too, and to the children, if we could, as a county, produce fewer children who are having these kinds of crises. And we'll do that by making, again, further investments into our communities. Bring in good jobs so people's parents don't feel that they have to give up children. To be there as a county to provide mental health and social services and treatment for addiction so that parents don't go off the deep end and mistreat their families. We want to create a better future and a better present for the children in this community, and that's going to start, yes, by addressing the needs and the concerns of the people who are there for them, who work for the county. That's, I think, elemental and basic, but let's not forget that we also need to invest in education, the quality of the air that these families are breathing, so on and so forth.
Miguel?
If I may just add this, the county recently approved Measure E to be on the ballot, and that measure would pay members of the community who are on the oversight board, a volunteer board, $80,000 a year. If you can find a way to pay $80,000 for volunteers to dole out $1 billion worth of construction projects, surely you can find the money to pay the social worker to check up on that kid who's just leaving that abuse situation. That's why I find it extremely difficult and frustrating that they constantly just talk out of both sides of their mouth when it comes to the people who they're charged by law for caring for, which is the vulnerable. And it's just, their excuses seems to be endless.
And Sal, I have not forgotten about you. You sit on the board if elected another term. How would you reduce turnover and improve the Fresno County foster care system?
I can tell you that most counties have not recovered from the pandemic. That's number one. Number two, I can tell you that there's been a lot of changes in that department. The person who was in charge before as the director is no longer there. The new director has made a lot of changes in that department, but we continue to be short on staffing. The cases are a lot higher that individuals have to take on, and it just it's just very difficult. And so we do a lot of trying to recruit new folks to come into that department. And so I can tell you that folks are really working hard to try and get it to the level that it should be performing, and also to help the employees to ease their caseloads.
Let's move on to transportation. In the next 4 years, if elected supervisor, you'll be making major decisions on the county's transportation funding for the next 30 years, including a $7 billion Measure C spending plan after the last version failed. While there is a lot of consensus around supporting road maintenance amongst all parties, there's still a lot of dissent between folks who prefer to widen roads versus folks who want to spend more money on public transportation, sidewalks, bike lanes. Luis, let's start with you. Where do you fall on the spectrum? Do you think the next iteration of Measure C should focus more on freeway and road widening, or focusing more on expanding public transportation?
I think we've seen what the previous priority you mentioned looks like. We built a lot of highways, 168, 180, 41, do a lot of expansions. Now I think it's time to invest in the inner core of our cities. I can tell you that the number one concern that residents have is called the window effect, right? When they see outside and their potholes are the size of canyons, and you have streets that haven't been repaved in decades, that's a problem. And so to answer your question, I think the public transportation piece is going to be key as we grow. Earlier, I cited some census numbers, almost 50,000 people additionally in the city of Fresno. We got to figure out ways of moving them so that they don't all have to drive, so that they don't all have to, create more greenhouse emission and pollute the air even more. As a council member that saw the BRT line push through, right, runs through the corridors, Blackstone, all the way up north. I think those are things that we should be investing in, making sure that the rural communities are also connected to the major hub areas. Because guess what? A lot of the folks that live in the surrounding communities come to our city for medical services, for badly needed, crucial medical services. We need to make sure that that next measure has that included in there, or I will not be supporting it.
Thank you. Sal, same question. Where do you fall on the spectrum of freeway and road widening versus increasing funding for public transit?
Well, freeways are critical to our infrastructure in Fresno County, and I think that it's important that we continue that. We need to also look at other ways how we can reach out and help our communities to also improve their transportation system. And so we need to I think, have some discussions on that.
Thank you. Miguel, same question for you.
As you probably know, I opposed to $250,000 the last measure seat because it would have continued the same behavior of more freeways and ignore all the existing roads that current residents actually want fixed. In my view, any new freeway interchanges that are needed for industry should be paid for by industry, not by local taxpayers. Local taxpayers should be funding the improvements of existing roadways, and it should be done not just because it's the right thing to do, but as I mentioned, the county's general plan, the housing plan for the region, the San Joaquin Air Control Plan, the city's general plan all call for high-density housing in the urban core of Fresno. We can't do that if they cut public transit by half. We are literally going to choke ourselves and bankrupt ourselves with additional sprawl if we go down the path of the last measure. The last measure would have expanded the sprawl of the city of Fresno to a point of bankrupting us. And that's why it was important to listen to the public and kill that proposal. And now it's time to negotiate a better proposal that focuses on existing residents, existing roadways, safe routes to schools, and public transit.
Thanks, Miguel. EJ, you've already told us at Fresno Land that you're a big supporter of public transportation. What does that specifically look like for you, and what routes would you invest in?
Well, first I want to say I would support the repair of our local freeways where they're needed, but I don't think that they need to be expanded with another lane. You can look at Los Angeles to see if more lanes has solved congestion problems, and it definitely has not. When I say public transportation, I think that there is regional transportation we could build, as well as District 3 is a county district, but it is in the urban core of the city of Fresno. And so I'm also thinking about municipal public transportation as well. I grew up in Kingsburg, and I used to really enjoy driving when I got my license in the summers down Old 99 Golden State. That is a thoroughfare that is just sitting there. And I know that there are plans in certain parts of it, but it seems like that would be a really good way to connect communities along the 99 to Fresno, and even up to Madera possibly. I would be curious to see what options are available maybe along Manning Avenue to get communities out like Dinuba, Reedley, Parlier, where my grandmother lives, to get them, connect to the 90 or the Golden State into the urban core of Fresno County. Those are ideas. But that's where my head is at for Fresno County and its public transportation. It's about the environment, but it's also about the economic cost of a person who is dependent on a vehicle for transportation. That's a massive financial liability is all I'm saying. And we can alleviate that economic pressure for people by building efficient public transportation.
I served on the Measure C committee when I first got on the Fresno City Council. And the planning was just starting at that time for the building of Freeway 168 and 180. And when you look at that today and the growth that it's caused in terms of development, wanting to move out that way, where you have those corridors and you have the land that the city wants to annex, that type of thing, it's going to take away a lot of the farming land. I can tell you that I believe it was a couple years ago that on Academy Avenue out by 180. I believe the city of Sanger took about 1,000 acres off of the Williamson Act for planned future housing. So, I mean, that's what's going on. And we need to look at that as well. And schools getting built in those new neighborhoods.
A little bit of time.
It's you. Closing statements.
I've turned it on. It's now time for closing statements of 1 minute each. Robin will hold up the 15-second card and ring the bell when your time is up. We ask that you respect the bell. We'll begin with you, Sal.
Well, I want to thank you very much for inviting me this evening. I'll tell you that in the years that I've served, the main thing that I look at, and the comment was made earlier, that a citizen, a resident, looks out their front window every day, and that's what they see. What do they see? If they see potholes, they see sidewalks that tree roots have pushed up, that their thoughts are, if government can't fix that, how can they fix the big picture? And so because of that, one of the things that I'm proud of is that I've always been able to return calls. I've always been able to be a good listener, and I believe it's very important that we're able to agree to disagree. If we don't agree on one thing, we can probably come together on the next one or build some consensus on that. And I give to you my experience that I've had. I love Fresno County. I love its history. And I can tell you that I still have unfinished business to take care of in my district. Recently, I was able to obtain $4 million. And with the county putting in some money, we would up that to $7 million to repair streets, curbs, and gutters in the county's neighborhoods.
EJ, you're up.
Well, I thank you for the invitation. It's been a pleasure. Raising 3 kids and being a teacher, I think about the future a lot. And I think about the future of Fresno specifically. A lot of my students have said how badly they want to leave when they come of age, how badly they want to leave Fresno County, the Central Valley. I want to create an environment here in this region that is so outstanding that anybody who lives here would always want to stay. And that means investing in our communities as they exist already. Let's focus a little while on infill. Let's focus on existing communities rather than trying to build new subdivisions and new communities. Let's bring investment back home to where we're living already. Let's clear the air. Let's improve our roads and our public transportation. Let's improve the quality of our schools. If we want to chart a new path forward for Fresno County, you're going to have some new vision, new leadership. I've got the energy. I've got the intellect. And I'm a compassionate person who's ready to collaborate with all of you, my neighbors, to create a better future for Fresno County. Thank you very much.
Luis?
Thank you. First of all, thank you to other organizations that organized this event. I'm very proud of the work we've done. I've been walking neighborhoods for the last 8-9 months now, have gone to about 2/3 of every corner of this district, and it's a pretty big geographical district, but I did that because I wanted to kind of gauge and get the input and feedback from our residents, and I'm very proud of the coalition that we put together. I'm the only candidate that's actually been endorsed by the Building and Trades Council, by the Central Labor Council, the city employee unions, the Fresno County Democratic Women's Club, and I'm very proud of that, and I think they do that because they trust me. I've had a long year of working in the community. I didn't start off in politics. I actually started off working as a teacher in a lot of those underserved communities. I worked for a lot of health clinics. So I got a chance to see the needs firsthand before I actually delved into politics. But I would again just thank you for the opportunity to come and take our message out. And every time that I've ran, I've always put my fate in the hands of the voters. But I'm confident that we're going to have a good night in March. So thank you.
If I may today, just remind you that there is a distinct difference between all of us here and what the county could be. During the pandemic, when Foster Farms tripled the assembly lines and people died, the county said we don't want to be involved in enforcing business rules. But the lady who opened her restaurant here, La Jaca, she got shut down for a week because she didn't have a plastic barrier behind her coffee pot. Fulton Cafe got shut down for 2 weeks because their hot water wasn't hot enough. The county focuses on the things that it wants to, on the things that it prioritizes. It has never focused on the most vulnerable, especially in this homeless crisis. Prior to our tenure on the council, the city was not involved with homeless at all. Not one shelter bed. Now we have 700. We've taken 3,000 people off the streets. We can't take the rest off without a different county that actually expands mental health, drug treatment, and services where they're needed, not where campaign contributors want them leasing property.
I want to thank the candidates and the audience. You guys have been terrific, and let's really appreciate these candidates. Don't forget to pick up the literature at the literature table that's outside. All four of these organizations will have the telecast from this evening on their websites. We also, at the League of Women Voters, we have vote411.org, and I'm proud to say that all four of these candidates have completed, in their own words, the answers to these questions. And so please go out and vote. Thank you for being here.